Evaluation. It is a delicate discussion, a touchy topic, a prickly point, a controversial concept, a sensitive issue, a minefield. How can I put it? Evaluation is one hot potato. No, that's not what I mean by hot. Honestly, who would imagine a potato to be hot like that? Oh, right. Moving on. Oh, well, sure, that is potato and it's fried now, so it's probably hot, but that's still not what I mean by hot potato. And that's the point. I think we have the same problem with evaluation. What does it mean? Evaluation almost has an evil aura to it nowadays. Poor forms of assessment and questionable objectives are giving evaluation a bad rap. But evaluation is a tool, not a goal. A hammer can be used to build or break something, and the same can be said of evaluation. And with ubiquitous access to technology for learners gaining ground everywhere, I think it's high time to consider a fresh perspective on evaluation. So before we go on, and since evaluation is such an equivocal word, allow me to humbly offer you my own definition of evaluation in the context of learning. Evaluation is the act of giving feedback following the analysis of a process, accomplishment, or combination thereof. Yup, that's it. It might seem a little too succinct for some, but several nuances are embedded in it. The feedback can vary in quantity from meager to comprehensive. The analysis spans in depth from superficial to thorough. The process or accomplishment can differ in scope from the procedural, declarative, to the highly complex. On top of that, the intention of evaluation, which can be either to assess or support learning, will influence the type of feedback, the criteria on which the analysis is based, and the conditions in which the process or accomplishment is monitored. I think that wise use of technology can have a positive effect on all of these variables. But before we go into that, let's take a closer look at how these elements play together in a classic example. Imagine a bubble sheet time-constrained multiple-choice form of test. Whatever the topic this test is for, imagine its questions to be straightforward. You either know the answer or you don't. The traditional close but no cigar answers are among the choices. Oh, and last but not least in our story here, you are the one taking the test. Scenario A. The test is administered at the end of the course. The answers you got right are tallied, and judgment is passed on whether or not you have succeeded the test. It is done. Final. No appeal. Scenario B. The test is administered at the beginning of the course. When the results arrive, you and your teacher sit down and consider the results, the clues as to what should be worked on in the following weeks. Scenario C. At some point in the course, because you had the possibility to learn at your own pace, the test is administered when you decide that you're ready for it. When the results come in, they pinpoint the concepts on which it could be useful to work at a little more, or if you've mastered the thing, it will point you to challenges you might find interesting from here on. In all of these cases, the accomplishment, if you will, is the same, a standardized test. In the classic assessment scenario, the analysis is limited to counting the right answers, and the feedback is a simple mark, not much to work with. The diagnostic scenario presents deeper analysis, and the feedback is more constructive. The conditions in which the test is administered in the gamified scenario are pretty different, and the feedback adds challenges to the mix. Please feel free to press pause here and discuss this further with your colleagues. So yes, while the same simple test can serve very different functions, it remains quite inadequate for measuring one's competency. Creativity, for instance, doesn't fit on a bubble sheet. Or as Alfie Kohn very aptly puts it, standardized tests are lousy measures of anything that matters intellectually. That being said, those forms of tests can still offer some useful information, just nothing you'd want a whole education system to hinge upon. What can technology bring to the table here? Well, for one thing, it can speed up the correction process and allow for instant feedback. When it comes to lower order thinking skills, the more rapid the feedback, the better. Not revolutionary, lackluster even, but not harmful as long as grades aren't attached to this. The problem is, from what I've seen over the years, this is regrettably the most common use of technology for evaluation. Now, what if part of the analysis was done by technology? I mean, if the questions are appropriately tagged in a database, all sorts of correlations are possible, and that can help identify the elements that need to be worked on. Other points of data can be collected, like how long you're taking to answer or if you needed clues or hints. This can enrich and speed up the analysis, and it can also help in offering more detailed feedback, like short video lessons tailored to your needs. Furthermore, for many topics, we can easily create randomized versions of the test, so it doesn't really matter how often you try it. Now, you might know of some websites and apps that are already putting all of this into practice, but I'll let you in on a secret. While all of these possibilities might seem novel and exciting, I think they're essentially using a brand new tool for the same old school. I heard Gervais Sirois say this some 15 years ago, and unfortunately, it seems to hold true. In education, we tend to give importance to what is easily measurable when we should be finding easier ways of measuring what's really important. Why is it so many people believe in the standardized test, as if it were the pinnacle of rigor and objectivity? Is it because it's easy to manage? Because it's what we know? Because it's been around for so long? Succeeding at a standardized test mostly calls upon memory. But memorizing is not learning, nor is learning memorizing. We remember stuff we frequently use. Apart from passwords, most of us seldom ever have to commit information to memory before it is useful. So instead of using technology to test memory, albeit in a more efficient manner, I think it's time we start leveraging technology to fundamentally change our evaluation practices. What if learners were allowed to use technology and access the internet at the exam? Wouldn't that get rid of the cheatable, Googleable, my smartphone knows the answer to this type of question? Sure, you could still ask bottom of Bloom's types of questions, but instead of testing rote memory, you'd be evaluating how efficient students are at retrieving information from credible sources. But the true benefit of a BYOD connected exam lies beyond that. It would force us to find clever ways of measuring what really matters. Problem-solving strategies, creativity, critical thinking, cooperation skills, risk-taking, communication, and the like. The old questions really become trivial in that context, only relevant if you're training for a game show. A BYOD connected exam means we focus on what learners can do with all the resources we all have access to all the time. We have to be careful here. Some have tried to renew the old exam questions by stitching a complicated, harebrained context around them. That's not it. If an exam question is very wordy, chances are you're dealing with this. Some of you are probably thinking, well, why not get rid of the exam altogether? And that's a good point. I'm not one for baby steps, but I think this is too big a leap at this time for a lot of people, including many parents, educators, and policymakers. But I do think the time is right to modernize our evaluation practices, and that means including interviews, video, peer feedback, and portfolios, even if we don't get rid of the exam just now. In any case, the data is important. It allows us to measure the impact of our actions, the pedagogical and didactic choices we make as educators. Nobody said the exam data should be turned into a final grade. We should always strive to get better, more relevant, richer data, which means our evaluation tools should be getting stronger, more complex than a standardized test. Now, I guess I should warn you. The moment you really start questioning current evaluation practices, you're on your way to questioning what we're teaching altogether. Let's face it, evaluation is quite often the tail that wags the dog. If we start to assess higher order thinking skills, it's bound to have a very positive impact on what we teach. There's a big but lingering here, I know, the curriculum. But you know what? More often than not, the curriculum leaves enough room for exams to evolve. The real hurdle is our culture of evaluation, and that we can all influence. Raising the bar is not getting better scores on simplistic tests. It's pushing for more refined evaluation instruments that measure what matters. And that means looking at the more complex processes and accomplishments with a deeper analysis and more constructive feedback. The BYOD connected exam very well might be the first step on that road to stronger evaluation practices.